Hey, welcome back to this mini lecture on the Parkland shooter given a life sentence. I'll give you sort of a quick rundown of some of the major like happenings and events of around the verdict about the shooter. First, the incident itself was a mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, just outside of Miami. In terms of the people that were deeply impacted, there were 17 dead and 17 injured. The perpetrator was a 19-year-old male who was a former Douglas Stoneman Douglas student. He pleaded guilty and he was convicted of 17 counts of premeditated first-degree murder and 17 counts of attempted first-degree murder. After deliberations by the jury, life imprisonment without possibility of parole was the sentence. I'm going to talk about a number. They're mainly educational issues. For the most part, there's one at the end that's a little bit broader. In terms of one, hardening. How do we harden school targets? How do we ensure that they are safe from people like shooters and other people who have malevolent intentions? Second, related to the first, in terms of infrastructure, what should schools have like within them? Should they have external locks? Should they have some kind of limited or surveilled entrances? Should they have metal detectors, et cetera, et cetera? Along that lines, again, officers, do you need a mandatory officer presence, like police officer presence at all schools? If so, what are the costs? What kind of equipment should they have? What kind of training should they have? If something goes wrong, what kind of liability should they be responsible for? Surveillance. How do we work towards identifying potential perpetrators like the one in the Stoneman Douglas case? Do we surveil their social media surveillance? Do we go to other depths of surveillance? What's the police role more broadly? Should they be mandated to follow up on troubled students? Say, for example, if a perpetrator has been known to have threatening behavior, such as the one in the Stoneman Douglas case. In terms of school surveillance, what is the role of the school in knowing their students? Like, should there be an individualized educational plan for every student so we kind of know what's going on with all of them to sort of help, again, identify people beforehand that could be troubled? School support. Should there be mandatory mental health counseling for everyone in schools, or it's just some people? And if it's just some, how do we identify who's most in need? And finally, proportionality. This is the sort of the non-educational one. What's the appropriate sentence? Like if you see some of the parents who and supporters of the parents and families who are deeply impacted, they were asking for the death penalty because of obviously the pain they've gone through and the extent of how awful a tragedy this was. And then conversely, if you think people can be redeemed on some case, and you think that society should be not quite as barbaric as a death penalty, is life imprisonment enough? Obviously, this last one, you can make good arguments either way. Here's some scenarios to explore in terms of adolescent crime like this one. First, how do we prevent this kind of adolescent crime? Is it teachers' responsibilities? Is it schools? Is it school boards? Is it families? Is it communities, etc.? Second, what role should police play in schools? Should they be school resource officers? Should they be following up if someone's been identified as being problematic? Should they be visiting school? If they're completely external, should they be visiting schools on a regular basis just to see what's going on and liaising with students and staff and faculty? 3, what standards should adolescents be held with respect to criminal acts? Should they be, like, say, for something as bad as this, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas case, should adolescents be held to the same standard as adults? Like, if an act is this horrific, should a thing like a death penalty be held? For more information, there's a really interesting video here. Father of Parkland shooting victim reacts to verdict of life without parole for gunman. That was a Parkland shooter given life sentence. Thanks for watching. Take care.